person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act of 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meetings protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Okay, do we have any apologies, substitutions, or declarations of interest?
Convener, we have apologies from Councillor Quinn to be substituted by Councillor Law. So we'll move to a roll call. And the following councillors, please indicate if they're present at the meeting. Councillor Brooks. Councillor Cassidy.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Clockery.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present remotely.
Councillor Curley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present remotely.
Councillor Jackson.
Present remotely.
Councillor Law.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McCormick.
Present in the chamber.
Provost Mackenzie.
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson. Are there any declarations of interest?
No.
Convener,
Sorry, Jim.
we've got the chiller on agenda item number. Anyway, I'm a member of the IL board, so it probably is wise expressing it at number 11, sorry, chiller replacement. As I'm there, an appointee of the council, I don't need to leave the chair. Likewise.
Okay. Anyone else? No.
You've read the new guidance then. You've read the new guidance.
Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Okay, item number 2 is the 24-25 Environment Regeneration Revenue Budget. Matt, do you want to take us through it?
Yes, thank you, Convener. It's the usual revenue budget, no surprises here. You'll see from section 1.3, we're currently showing a £220,000 overspend, which is less than 1%. It's a relatively small overspend. The details of that are in section 3, not section 4 as it says under section 3, which I'll not go through, but I'm happy to take any questions later on if that's okay. I would draw your attention to 1.4, where you'll note that round about £200,000 of the current overspend has been deemed to be an ongoing pressure, largely out with officers' control, and there's been funding approved for that from 25-26 going forward, so that should ease some of the issues next year. As I say, there's more details later on in the report and in the appendices, which I'm more than happy to take questions on, but other than that, I would just ask activity to note the current position, note the funding requirements going forward, or not funding approved going forward to address the pressures, and also note that there is still an ongoing review of various areas of agency staff. Students' officers have reviewed and covered some of that. There's still a species ongoing, so that's an ongoing issue. That'll be reported back as and when we have some issues on it. That's all I've got to say. I'll take any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Sure, right on.
Through you, Convener, apologies for the familiarity of the terms POPs and WUDs. I'm sure members will be aware that's persistent organic pollutants and waste opposed to domestic seeding. Apologies for
I think everybody knew that, so with it. Right, okay, any questions for Matt? No, don't see anything, don't see in the chat. Okay, can we agree recommendations?
Agreed.
Great, thank you. Item number 3 is the Environment and Regeneration Capital Programme Progress Report from 24 to 28. Eddie.
Thanks, Convener. Capital report includes the usual multiple projects at various stages. I won't go through them all, but I'll highlight a few items. The common tender documents are nearing completion, so a little behind where we hope to be, but should be ready for issue by the end of next week. Waterfront chiller replacement projects covered by a separate report later on the agenda. We received funding quite late in the financial year through the Active Travel Infrastructure Fund, as outlined in 3.31, and that work on the widening of the existing coastal path between Kingsley Dock and Ground Street is currently ongoing. On the flooding item within 3.36, we actually have commenced work on the Covered Wood Scheme earlier than indicated in the report. That's currently on site. The other notable item is the commencement of the Environment Regeneration project, with the contractor currently setting up the site compound with the work scheduled to commence on the 17th. There's also a small typo in the report that was highlighted to me in 3.30. The reference there at the bottom of that should be 3.29, not 3.31. In terms of the overall expenditure and projections against the 2024-25 approved budget, we are reporting advancement of just over £500,000, which is a reduction from the previous reported figure last time round. I've asked that the committee approve recommendations, and myself and the other officers are happy to answer any questions on the various projects.
Okay, thank you. Any question for that? Chris?
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. A few questions, so I'll see how it goes. Just on the Plum Park regeneration, I note that there's the ongoing with respect to the tender and the planned works commencing on site soon. I'm just wondering if there's any update about when that will happen. And also, it talks about a further 2 tranches of the dangerous building notices, and it says that these might be included within the current contract. Just a wee bit of clarity with respect to that. Obviously, one of those notices still has it's noticed it's still got an active appeal, and it says that there's 30 notices if you don't have an active appeal. So I'm just wondering if you're going to be extending the contract, is it just for the 33 properties, or does it include a section of properties that are within the notice that still has an active appeal? That's my first question.
Neil?
Thanks. So you can be on thanks to questions. So the works are still intended to be starting on site imminently. The last paragraph of 3.8 indicates the waiting certifications for utility disconnections. As soon as that happens, the site will be mobilised and work will commence. So it's currently anticipated that will be early April, but it depends on that external factor. In terms of future phase of demolition, you're right, the second phase of dangerous building notices that were served has a live appeal at the moment, and that's ongoing. What the report's referring to is that there are properties within that wider segment of the dangerous building notices in phase 2 that could form part of the demolition phase, but we have to look at the logistics of the legal challenge and the disconnections for the property within that. So we don't have a position in that, but officers are looking at that to review what the options are.
Okay, so there's a possibility that we could be extending to include that second tranche as well as the third tranche.
It's possible, yeah.
Hey, Chris, you've got another question? Yep.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Just on Dunrod Road, I raised it last. I noticed as raising it as a possible delay due to an environment. I think it was an ecological study, environmental study. Just get my terminology correct. Yes, an ecological study area. So last meeting I raised sort of concerns about getting an idea about the sort of overall programme for this works. I also got another delay there, so I'm just trying to get a feel about how much that's going to be, how much it's going to impact, and how we can actually monitor that project. Because obviously, as we said, I labelled the point last time about it being a very important infrastructure towards the Cornwallis Bridge and Cornwallis Visitor Centre. So just interested in how we can actually get that sort of that programme scoped in, so that we can actually sort of we can scrutinise that going forward and see how the project is developing.
Sure, you want to?
Through your convener, Councillor Curley, you recognise that officers are equally keen for that project to be delivered. There has been some concerns raised by one of the consultants in respect of the potential for hen harriers, which are a protected species, being in the area, and we're working with the consultants to try and address that. We are in a situation where we're trying to find a revised design for the works. And you'll recall that last year the place-based investment funding was withdrawn, and we still haven't had confirmation from Scottish Government as to whether that place-based investment funding is when it's going to be in our receipt. So we're trying to come up with a solution which is available, that works, and for it to be delivered seamlessly. has been difficult. As you know, the topography in the site is very, very difficult. Getting equipment into the site is very, very difficult. And we'll bring a report to members in due course once we're in a position to report something meaningful.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Paul.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple of questions. And so I'm going to raise one of them that we have raised a number of times. You know, committee and done roads. You obviously you for me appreciate that the whole project's a very complex one, special engineering works and you've got to go into it. And of course, we can't forget the cut last year from the Scottish Government, which has hampered progress on this year as well. I think it's 300,000 we lost from it, and that's at this point. I do hope we get a return of that money. So I do. It's an issue that's always raised me and with the community council, and I just want to ask you in terms of this, are we making sure we've got clear communication lines with the businesses, the farmers affected, and community council about where we are with things?
Sure.
Through Convener, just for clarity, there was a £300,000 allocation from place-based investment fund, and we spent 100 of that Councillor Cassidy. So the withdrawal of £200,000 of funding is what we're dealing with in that case. We are attempting to communicate that we can always do better. So we'll give the commitment to the committee that will endeavour to make best endeavours to ensure that everybody that's involved in the project or who has an interest in the project is communicated.
Sure, that's sure. So my next question is obviously the Inverkip project was a major one, and let's say we're going to have work starting that imminently. So I suppose I'm really getting a bit about that. I just want to ask you how you were going to be communicating through this, works starting, to the local community, the Wednesday, so like people use the A78 network in that section.
Sure.
So you can get between the Inverkip works and the impending levelling up one works, we recognise the communication is key. There is a dedicated microsite that's been created for Inverkip works in order that the public can see and get regular updates with that. And colleagues in corporate communications have been very supportive in the development of that microsite. There's no getting away from it that there will be disruption associated with the Inverkip project. We can't introduce a new junction and improve two other junctions on a trunk road without some disruption. But in terms of that disruption, we're hoping that it will be minimised by the fact that the works at the break end of the site will be controlled by traffic lights, and there's no getting away from that because of the width of the road. But we're assured by our contractor that with regards to the works at Main Street and Harbour Street, that they will both be able to be constructed by using two-way traffic, maintaining two-way traffic during the works. So in terms of the impact on that, it should be minimised, but we need to recognise both as officers at committee and at the wider community that the works are there to improve things. The byproduct of the works at Harbourside and Main Street will hopefully address a number of the road safety issues which to date have not been addressed by the roads authority.
So sure, I welcome that creation of that microsite that you mentioned. So I think that'll be key helping communicating people, keep people informed about what's happening. But 3.30, Eddie, I appreciate you passing my thanks on to your team for the project that works to make Inverkip the path improvements. I get a lot of comments from members of the community who use it. Welcome to the works, it's really quite good. A question at 3.10 Euclid Park. Do we have a timeline on the works for Clifton Humboldt Road Play Park?
Thanks. So there's some slight delay in the contract side that to get started. The start date is the week of 7th of April, and date 6 weeks to be completed in May.
Yeah, that's great. And my last question, 3.11, the Nature Restoration Fund. Glad to see we've got money now to take forward those projects that we had to cancel last year after the cut from the Scottish Government. Do we have new timescales for these projects? Yeah.
through your convener, we can provide a timeline coming back to you, and that funding's only recently been made aware to the council, so we've been in the position where the list in August was a prioritised list without funding until very recently, so we'll revisit the timescales for that. Some of the works are also priority, and we'll look to address those in that fashion.
Thanks, Ian.
Okay, Paul. Councillor Crowther, John.
That's fine, sir. Thank you, convener. If we just start, there's two questions I have. One is 3.11, which is the Nature Restoration Fund, and it's to do with Coves Reservoir. During the recent storm we had, that's Storm Aowen, I noticed there was quite a lot of damage had been done at the reservoir. Trees that had been blown down, and some of the new trees where the protective cylinders or sheets that were around them, they've all been broken. But what is really more concerning is the fact that the path that runs between Mallard Crescent and the top reservoir is beginning to rot. Some of the surface on that, the kind of core was quite light, and rainwater has now started to wash that away in places, giving a rot. And it's just if that can be checked, so that no one actually goes over on their ankle and is injured through it. The second one is to do with 3.45, and it mentions the City Region Cabinet has approved in principle for of a regional commercial space bid. It also goes on to say there, which we see each member authority receive a share of funds to develop commercial space and to explore further project activity at Inch Green. It also states there that a further report is to be presented to the February City Region Cabinet. Obviously, that has now passed. We're now in March, and was just wondering when a paper will be presented to the ENR so that the members can see what is within the City Region deal paper.
Neil.
Thanks, so in terms of pathway calls, happy to have a check and report back.
Okay, Stuart, you want to go?
For you, convener, Councillor Crowther, in terms of the City Region Cabinet, the City Region Cabinet made a national allocation of £11.12 million for the commercial industrial bid that was led by Mr. Michael Vanning on behalf of the council and on behalf of the wider City Region. So that's considerably more than what we normally get in terms of our population share. With regards to the £2.99 million, which is sitting against an underspend against Green Ocean Terminal, along with further allocation out of an inflationary project, those projects have been worked up with Peel at this moment in time, and ultimately they will come back to the committee for approval.
Okay, sure, that's very nice, lovely, thank you.
Okay, John. Chairman Nicholas.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Probably two really comments from me. The first one is on the Levelling Up Fund. It's just to thank Stuart and Neil for the work that's been going on in that. I know there's been an awful lot of work going on just to try and get financial closure to it. I know we're not quite there, but I know we're close to it. So just to commend you on the work for that. I suppose my real question or my real ask, both for yourself, Stuart, and maybe for Eddie, is over the last week or two, and this is probably the right part of the paper to ask about it, or to ask you to maybe make a statement about it. We've been inundated with problems within the roads in the area, and I'm sure your phone's been off the hook, Eddie, and I'm sure Stuart's been as well. For us, some members, this is probably the right place that we've got to ask you maybe for a wee comment on that, or a wee bit to fulfil our scrutiny role, because obviously it's probably impacted in all of us. I know the ones who stay in the centre of town and elsewhere, it's probably been more so, it's been painful. So it's really just to ask you to maybe, if you can make a wee statement to give us the council's view on it, because we know it's not straightforward as blame the council for everything. So a good opportunity if you could maybe just give us a bit of a statement so that at least we know we've done our bit at this committee to do our scrutiny role and to ask the question about what's happened and what can we do to ensure that we try and get more smoother lines of communication, both to the communities, but also to places like Transport Scotland, to our utility companies and places like that.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Stuart, recommend that.
Yeah, please, convener. The impact on the road network over the last fortnight has been far from ideal. Recognising that Inverclyde is a little bit unique in that it has two trunk roads that run through it, as well as its own network. The impact of the works on the A78 has been felt by everyone, and we're working with Transport Scotland and Amy, their contractor, to see if there's anything that can be done to alleviate the works on the A78. At the moment, we have one of the widest roads in Inverclyde, and it's going to flow traffic. So we're trying to work with Amy in order for the impact of those pavement works to be minimised, and we're hopeful that we can move forward with that. On the particular day that there was gridlock, we also had Scottish Power carrying out emergency works at Elgin Street. Now, the emergency works at Elgin Street were in order to re-establish an electrical supply to 900 businesses and homes. So it genuinely was emergency works, and whilst it was not ideal, having Elgin Street closed exacerbated the problem, or having Elgin Street on traffic lights exacerbated the problem. We contributed to the problems as well at Patrick Street, because the temporary lights that we had at Patrick Street went off for a period in time, and we worked with the contractor to get them back on. The works at Patrick Street are due to be complete this week, and the works at Elgin Street were completed on Tuesday. So the works did not rest for long before the road was reopened. We've got planned works at Blackfield Road, and that's where Scottish Water are replacing water mains. So there's not a lot we can do about that. But what we are trying to do is work with the MSP, with McGill's, with Transport Scotland, with Amy, and any of our contractors, in order that the works on our roads network at this moment in time are minimised in terms of the disruption to the public. It hasn't been good so far in the last fortnight, but we are determined that we'll do better amongst all of us. So I've had meetings with Mr McMillan, I've had meetings with McGill's, and we are having dialogue with Transport Scotland and Amy, and we have intervened in certain locations where work were planned to take place, and it just wasn't the right thing for those works to take place at that time, when the pressure was as bad as it is on the network. But I firmly believe that the A78 is fundamental, and if we can improve the traffic flow on the A78, because at times it's backed up for miles, and that's unacceptable, we can make significant improvements in the public's movements within Inverclyde.
No, really just to thank Stuart very much for that. I think it's important for us to get that clarity of what you are doing and what has been done. So thank you, and thank Ed and his team as well.
Chris, recommend.
Yeah, thanks, and that's I appreciate the question from Jim. It's a good question. Just to come back onto the sort of the sort of strands and active travel routes. I know there's additional funding is identified on page 14, 3.30 for a feasibility study site route at Devolve Glen, design work for such strands and site survey and visual take place by Inverclyde Council, and these are works that are planned before the end of the financial year. So I presume that means the feasibility study is going to be complete before the end of the financial year. Also, I've raised it previously that there's been a number of feasibility studies undertaking these works and a number of designs prepared. And I think it would be good, as I said previously, for these to be shared with elected members so that we can do our scrutiny role and also be advocates for these important as additions to our travel network in Inverclyde.
Through you, Convener. Yeah, absolutely, and we have a number of those already sitting there ready to get issued out. But what we didn't want to do is just bombard you with half a dozen or more different studies without giving you a kind of covering note to explain what they are and how they fit in with the capital report and what stage they're at. So we're just doing that covering piece just now, and the intention is to get those out to elected members very, very soon hopefully for the next couple of weeks, you know, so there's a lot of information sitting there, and we're keen to get that.
Okay.
Thank you.
John, is that a legacy hand or do you want to come back in?
That was a legacy hand, that's it removed now.
Okay, no problem. Anything else? No? Okay, can we agree recommendations?
Agreed.
Great.
Give you this stage, can I, John?
Good.
Well, first, to apologise to you and the committee for being late in. It's not my usual. Some private issues and common sessions, so I will go into details. And I definitely some interest in item number 9, even though I do sit in item 4, that I will stay in the chamber as it's only for voting. Thank you, Sabina.
Okay,
Apologies.
no problem. I suppose it was remiss of me not to welcome Kirsty to the Environment Regeneration Committee. I was forgetting, I don't know if you've been involved in this committee before,
No,
Kirsty.
no, our first time.
I'm sure you'll find it a riveting experience. You're most welcome. Okay, item number 4 is the Environment Regeneration Committee Delivery and Improvement Plan from 23 to 26. Performance report. Stuart.
In regard to the report provides members with an update on our committee delivery and improvement plan. It's the second report of the year and provides progress against the plan and the KPIs where appropriate. In some cases, members, there's been no movement in the KPIs, and that's simply because there hasn't been any change in the reporting period. Paragraph 3.6 sets out the actions and sub-actions which are complete, and also those where there's been some slippage. Paragraph 3.8 gives narrative on KPI performance, and we're looking at ways of mitigation on the clients not gaining full or partial qualifications. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, Stuart. Any questions on the CEDA? No? No? Can we agree recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks, Stuart. Item 5 is a draft economic growth plan. Neil, it's yours.
So in terms of the report for you, it was a proposed draft economic growth plan for consideration today. The purpose of the report is to bring forward an early draft stage of the economic growth plan for consideration, to invite feedback and for authorisation to proceed to undertake wider engagement on the action plan and the action set out in order that we can build and delivery capacity of the plan itself. Plans being produced with some engagement across the business base, some data and research to inform its findings. It subsumes asks that we currently have from the socio-economic task force and other asks that are in actions that are in the report. I won't go through them specifically, don't have to take any questions on the report.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Any questions for Neil? Yes.
It's not so much a question for clarification. Obviously, it's in as a draft economic growth plan. So first of all, it's a plan. So is this how will this plan be based? Is it going to be an internal plan for us to check up, or is it going to be a plan that can be used actually to gather more support more widely throughout sort of various Scottish Government, UK Government, and various regional partners? It's just what's who's going to be the people who are going to see the plan? And second of all, it's a draft plan, so comments, feedback, etc. How best for us as elected members to make that to yourself?
Okay, Neil.
Thank you. Through convener. So the purpose of the plan is not to create another policy document. It's to augment and supplement the economic regeneration strategy that exists, and indeed a range of other plans, policies, and strategies. The purpose is to galvanise and coordinate a series of actions, and the engagement process that will follow this is in order to recognise that the council can't act alone to deliver many of these actions. So it's to engage broadly across different stakeholders, including agencies, to get support to buy in to make a concrete delivery plan to make a difference in the climate economy. So it's not an internal document. It's the engagement process will itself galvanise the plan, and will become a kind of coordinated plan across partners for the economic growth.
Thank you. And feedback?
Sorry for the question there. Yeah, absolutely. The purpose of the next stage is engagement, so absolutely happy for any feedback, thoughts, and willingness to engage to be directed towards me, and I'll happily facilitate any of that.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
Thanks, Peter. Yep, page 36, 4.3. To ensure that a cohesive tourism offer, and that's one thing we don't have, not at all. This council is very, We've got tens of thousands of people arriving on cruise ships, and going by reports, that number's going to rise quite significantly. Many of these people will travel away and do day trips, as you would expect them to do, but many will stay locally. And we've got to get a grip of what we are offering locally, what there is to do, what to see, and the stories to tell, and all the rest of it. And there's no joined up thinking, there's nothing coming from this council. You know, we say, oh, there's the department looking at it. My experience is zero, absolutely zero. And this is our responsibility to make this happen and to get this. There's money to be made off these tourists, unashamedly so, for businesses and for individuals. And the other thing that's mentioned in here is the cruise ship levy. And that's something that we must look at very, very importantly, because that's not for making things better for cruise passengers that arrive here. It's to make things better for the locals. And if you make things better for the locals, then the tourist passengers will see it better. But that is so important, and it's becoming much more important. The regeneration of our like tourism is going to play a big part. And I think we should be paying a lot more attention to it than we actually are.
That's true. You would you make a commitment?
Not to say much, only just to fully endorse that. That's the purpose of the report, is to recognise that a cohesive tourism offer and package is essential to sort of capturing growth in that sector. So fully support what you're saying.
Sure.
Through you, convener, just to add, members recognise the very, very limited budget and resources available within the Education and Communities Directorate for tourism. Members will also recognise that there's just been a significant allocation made as part of the budget setting process for tourism. We'll certainly work together as directorates in order that we maximise any opportunity from that budget allocation.
Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Couple, questions. First, 4.5 on welcome they have emphasised the broad community well-building in this report. I think we could do more. There's a lot of good things, initiatives that we're doing in Inverclyde that actually fall into community well-building. We might not necessarily always look at it through the community well-building lens. I think for me, there's a whole lot to develop community well-building strategies. Is that something we're looking at doing? And in terms of the community well-building panel, is there any thought been given to what the makeup of that's going to be?
No.
Thanks for the question again through you. So in terms of the it's just intended to draw out the purpose of the growth plan is to recognise that we can do more with the assets that we have, place-based assets, and retain the wealth locally. So that's the purpose of that. The Community Wealth Building Panel is a proposed approach to the governance around this once it comes back to final version, with further engagement we'll undertake with stakeholders. We'll look to define and shape how that looks, the membership of it, and bring back proposals with the final version of the plan at that time. And augment the growth plan with any aspects of community wealth building to be built into that.
Okay. So sometimes good as well. I was just spoke about tourism. Focus on this on tourism. It's definitely true. We've got a massive untapped potential. In tourism, Inverclyde, and we definitely do want to promote and enhance our tourism officer. I was at a recent cruise ship roundtable on tourism, and there's definitely strong interest from companies there and increasing the offerings for Inverclyde, and there's a lot of local traders and businesses that are eager to capitalise on that opportunity. I think we spoke in that report about tourism strategy. I think it's important that the development of that extends beyond just cruise ship tourism. We need to kind of, as the report talks about, a comprehensive cohesive approach, that maximises all the aspects of tourism within Inverclyde. And I think definitely the comments in this report about the 270k to be allocated to the recent budget process to tourism is a significant intent from this council to look at doing more in that area. So I'm just kind of wondering, we spoke about in that report about the development of a tourism strategy. What are we looking at in timescales for that? Because I think that'll be key to help drive what we do in this area.
Sure, Neil.
Just from the defence capacity that tourism isn't within this committee's remit, it's education and communities. But as I said earlier, we're more than happy to work with our colleagues in that directorate to ensure that tourism gets its rightful place.
That's that.
Okay. Okay, don't see any more. Can we agree with recommendations? Good. Okay, item number 6, the local development plan evidence report and scoping report. Neil.
Thanks, Fiona. If we're just introducing the item, the evidence report, scope report that's been presented tonight, again, it's in draft form. This is the first stage, published stage of the development of a new development plan for Inverclyde. It's been produced under new regulations by the Scottish Government, so there's only a handful of evidence reports in the country so far. So we've made progress to develop this. The purpose of the evidence report is to go into Scottish Government, put a number of scrutiny from the reporters unit, who will effectively come back and give us permission or otherwise to proceed to the next stages of producing the development plan. There's really comprehensive documents supporting the paper, so I will not highlight any single bit of it, but again, as you don't have to get questions.
Okay, Neil, thank you. Any questions for Neil on the LDP? Yes.
Yeah, thanks. They are very weighty documents. But I'm just wondering, obviously we're starting the process for the development plan and this is the foundations upon which we build. But I'm just wondering, as we develop, we're getting approval from the Scottish Government, reporters, etc. How much flexibility do we have in developing the plan from this point? If we've got the scoping report and the notification report, does this hardwire in some components of the local development plan already, or is it really just an information gathering, information presenting part of it, and we have a lot more and have more flexibility as we develop the plan going forward? I just wanted to make sure there's things within the report that's really that we actually then get stuck in stone kind of thing, or get cast in stone.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, the evidence report is what it says in the title of the report. It's gathering the evidence. There are aspects of the report which sorts of evidence is presented, summarised, and some of the implications for the development plan are set out, but it is not a policy document. The next stages of the plan will be authoring the policies in the plan, and that would involve statutory engagement, and we fulfil it and more. I would say that it's referenced in the report that since previous iteration of development plans in Inverclyde, the National Plan Framework 4 has now formed part of the development plan. So in that sense, some of the policies are set nationally. We have an ability to vary them in some instances where there's strong evidence, and that would be worked through the process, but we consider the development of the local development plan alongside the requirements of NPF4 as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Jim, sorry.
Thanks, convener. Just a broad question. I'm sure Stuart will remember. Previously, when we were doing the local development plan, we did have a sort of members group at that point in time that you ran things by, a sort of sounding board, if you call it that, to see the stuff that was acceptable. And I think it was quite well thought of. I know I was on it at the time, and I know the members who were on it took it very seriously as well. It was just to see whether or not you had any plans on doing anything like that, or whether because with the various iterations of the local development plan, plus when we got the housing part knocked back, whether or not we're too far along, or whether or not we're at that stage yet, or whether or not we've thought about it, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your convener. It's certainly not too late to engage. Probably there will be extensive engagement going forward to the process, and we'd be absolutely happy to take on board members' feedback in a shape or form that's appropriate. Also, I'm not aware of the history of the development process in previous plans, but I've got experience of that in other authorities, and it's a fairly commonplace arrangement. Thanks, Dean.
Okay. Okay. Don't see any more hands. Can we agree the recommendations?
Agree.
Okay. Item number 7 is the roads asset management plan program, 25 to 26. Eddie.
Thanks, Convener. The report seeks approval for the roads asset management and active travel programmes for 2025-26. The criteria used to prioritise schemes across the various strands is outlined in section 3, with the detail of proposed schemes included in appendix 1. That's the committee approved recommendation.
Okay, that's it. Any questions for Eddie? Yes.
A couple of questions. I think Mr. Johnson mentioned about the recent budget. I think the recent budget also included £600,000 for roads improvements. I'm just wondering, basically timescales here. I presume it's not the money is not within this report. So how would that be included within the ramp?
Through you, Convener, Councillor Curry is absolutely correct. This report was written before the budget exercise was completed, and we'll come back with appropriate proposals.
Thank you.
Recognising we could spend it many times over.
Yes, we could always spend the money lots of
Not in word for word. Just word for word.
Yeah, well, just word for word. £20 million to spend on word for. With respect to the active travel at the end, there's I noticed there's a love. I like that PLA. Diversion route works, additional traffic arrangements, pedestrian crossing improvements. Obviously, we're conscious of the fact that this is going to be moving ahead shortly with the demolition of the open wall and the removal of the 78 flyover and the Bull Ring roundabout. So I'm just wondering if officers can provide some clarity about what sort of pedestrian crossing improvements are and why these are form part of this as opposed to any funding.
Eddie.
You could be as part of the kind of work to analyse what would be required for the traffic diversions. There's technical consultants that provide a number of recommendations, so that they've been scrutinised and also contributed to by officers from roads. Some of those do obviously link in with travel and pedestrian, improving pedestrian links and pedestrian movements. That's why they're appropriate to fit under this heading. This particular item will deal with a crossing point in the Hotfield, close to Notre Dame, and we felt that it was appropriate to fit it within this funding criteria.
Okay, so that's interesting. So there's obviously we're looking at quite a large scale diversionary routes with respect to the level of funding. Yeah.
Sure.
You can hear it to be clear, that's a specific item. But you'll also notice that above that there are items included in those potential diversion routes, with ensuring that our existing network is fit for that purpose as opposed to putting additional gear on it as a result of diversion routes and then failing. So similar to the conversation that we had earlier about the roadworks, making sure that our network is fit for those diversion routes and roadworks. And highlighting through, the diversion routes will occur during the works, but the pedestrian crossing will be there after the works, and it's an enhancement to the network.
Yes, there's a synergy. So thank you for that clarification. It's interesting to see. So as part of the ramp, we're actually looking at making proactive improvements to our road network to actually enable us to ensure that, as with the loft diversions, that we're actually not going to have the network can actually cope with that additional weight of these routes. So that's very interesting to hear and good to hear. So I like thank officers for that proactive approach.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? No? Okay, thank you, committee. Recommendations, yeah. Okay, now item number 8 is the National Strategy for 20 miles per hour. An update report. Eddie.
Thanks, Convener. The report provides an update on the ongoing engagement with Transport Scotland on the commitment from the Scottish Government to implement the National Strategy for 20 mile per hour speed limits in all appropriate roads in built by the end of 2025. There was a members' briefing on that earlier this week, so I won't go through the detail that was covered within that, which is also within the report and the appendices. The report is predominantly for noting and to ensure that the committee have an understanding of the work undertaken to date, which has been funded by Transport Scotland, which all Scottish local authorities are engaged in at the moment. There are a small number of authorities already having taken action in this area, as outlined within the report. £651,000 outlining to the table at 3.13 is still coming from Transport Scotland in the new financial year. And again, subject to committee decision and approval, we do take forward the strategy. There will be a significant number of roads within North Line affected A number of risks remain around funding and the extent to which Transport Scotland will fund measures beyond those outlined in the table. And since this report was drafted, I've actually had further engagement with Transport Scotland, where they're indicating that they may fund traffic calming measures, but only if they are evidence-based and reasonable. So clearly there's a need for continued engagement with TS and a further report to this committee when we have clarity around the funding position and how much is actually going to be made available. Although the recommendations are mostly forgotten, we are seeking confirmation that the committee agrees on the principles of 20 mph speed limits and number of roads identified based on the road assessment guidance issued by Transport Scotland. So that's committee approved recommendations, and I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Graham.
Yeah, thanks very much. I would like to move a motion on the subject. We have had a number of challenges that I won't rehearse. The question that came from Jim about the number of roads that we have. Some challenging comments on social media about, if only we could drive at 20 miles an hour in some of our roads. I took the trouble to email officers the motion, but I realise I haven't copied enough for those in chamber due to my letter Bible, so I apologise. So my motion it has a few pages, but the back pages, I will assure you, is simply my rationale where I came from. It talks about the alternative for safer roads, and it talks about the rationale for my motion. I would like to say to yourself, Kavira, that the back 4 pages are not instructive of officers. I fully understand my role here is not to instruct officers, although the reading of the last 4 pages could be classified as that. It is only to inform you, or sorry, to inform members of how I've came to the motion. The motion, I have 1 copy here if I want to pass to Colin. I realise getting you an electronic copy. I don't know whether you choose to allow officers to circulate it. I do apologise, I've got multiple copies. I'll continue when you instruct me.
If you want to make it done for 5 minutes, we can get copies and circulate.
Yes, okay, I think that's a good idea. We're going to jump for 5 minutes, get some copies.
Very much.
Circulate
My apologies.
members.
Yeah, that's us.
Okay. Okay. So we've received the motion from Councillor Brooks. Councillor Brooks, do you propose amending the motion you put
I'm
forward?
happy to speak to it on
on legal advice.
from legal.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Kavira. I wish to stand up. I'll say
You can stand up if you want.
I hope to stand up. Yeah, so the challenge the constituents have, and I think my inbox has been fairly full since the story in the newspapers became public, is the challenge of the 20 miles an hour is not appropriate for the 1,054 roads within the Clyde. So what we have is a challenge that's obviously been laid before us. So if I move to your paper, our papers on page 77, the recommendations at 2.1. The bullet points are numbered, so I've numbered them for you. So bullet point 1, 3, 4, and 5 is for noting, and convener would suggest that we note them without amendment. So I'm happy just to leave that there. Bullet point number 2 talks to note and agreeing principle, and that is where I'd like to lay before my colleagues that we don't agree in principle. And the words that I have written down, that's at number 2 number 1 in bold of the motion in front of you, is to be the pros and principle, the 20 mile speed limits on roads identified during the March 2023 assessment. So I'm not talking about schools, I'm not talking about villages. These are the right things to do for schools and villages to bring the speed limit down. But there was an assessment made of multiple roads. We have in the paper other roads, obviously within a subsection of the roads within the 1,054 that we're talking about moving forward. There's lots of ifs and buts. I hear the comment. Sorry, the director. Please cooperate. I hear the director's comments to me. There's about This isn't going forward as in the officer's recommendations or printed because of money's not coming. It's all about, will the money come from Transport Scotland? Won't it come? We've had the narrative that we've had a positive conversation, and I hear all that. So I'm not trying to attempt to subject officers to further costs, because that is not obviously my gift. I'm sure Peter would call me out if I chose to do that. So quite simply, the bullet point number 2 is that we note what's happening, but we own in principle the 20 mile speed limits on roads identified during the March 2023 assessment, and that is the amendment to the members' hands for them. As I've said in the past, my rationale for it is behind it. I'm all for safety. I'm all for doing the right thing for our community. 20 miles an hour speed limits is the wrong thing.
Eddie, do you want to come back on this?
Very briefly, obviously I appreciate that the assessment has been made based on Transport Scotland issued criteria. So officers have made the assessment based on that, but not a choice in doing that. And the purpose of putting this paper before the committee was just to make everybody aware of where we were in this process. We're not the only ones doing this. Other councils are looking at this too. But yes, it does involve quite a number of rules in play, and it is appropriate to flag that and where we are in the process. What I would say is that there is one further recommendation which should be accepting and noting.
Oh, sorry, my error. Number 6 is also considered. Number 6, I've clicked on page.
Yeah, that's all. That's all.
Okay. Right, okay. Sorry, Chris.
I suppose if we got a motion, do we have an amendment?
Kirsty, to second. Were you one?
We don't need a second.
No,
Sorry, Kirsty.
It's up to yourself.
Right, Chris, you want to come in first? Is that all you wanted to?
Well, it's just to say, because obviously, if it's an amendment or a motion,
It's a motion.
you first up, so I also need an amendment. Just really on the principle, I think in the principle, I don't think it'd be a surprise to members of this council. My view on 20 mile per hour speed limits, I think it's part of a very important part of changing how we consider urban speed and the impact it has on what is some very vulnerable citizens within our community. If you're 30 mile per hour, your kinetic energy is more than twice what it is at 20 mile per hour. That has a significant impact on skeletal injuries and on whether or not you can survive. I've looked at it online, there's various numbers, etc., but that is the fact that you've basically got a 90% chance of surviving at 20 mile per hour and a 10% chance of surviving if you're at 40 mile per hour. And you get to 30, it depends on who's been hit, etc., and all that sort of stuff. So I think it has got that dramatic impact. The 1,000 road numbers is a big number, but we actually look at what we're talking about. A large number of these roads will be roads within our estates, etc. That should be 20 mile per hour by default. If I look where I stay, all the roads in the surrounding area, which probably are about say 20 roads, should be 20 mile per hour. It's dead easy to do. If you look at other areas like Clunbray or the 761, you're looking at areas roads that's going to stay at 30 mile per hour, presumably. It's not identified which of these are the 45 roads in the document, but I'm presuming, and officers maybe confirm, that the primary distributed roads, etc., will largely stay at 30 miles per hour and 40 miles per hour when appropriate. So the getting around Inverclyde is going to stay much the same. It's what the impact it has on around schools, around traffic generators and things like that within our communities. And I think that's the important aspect. We want to get people to slow down. And interestingly, as I said, when my son was learning to drive about 5 years ago, he took me out and said, "Oh, he'd got a bit more experience." So I was in the passenger side, and he was driving around at third gear at 20 miles per hour. And I said, "Are you sure you should be driving at this speed?" Because I remember when I was passing my test, I was actually failed for not making due progress at travelling 20 miles per hour. Should you not? He says, "No, we've been told that they were learning it to be travelling at a lot slower speeds in urban areas." So that's what the new drivers have been told. This is all about reinforcing the message of what's appropriate speed in urban areas. And as I say, something that I've been trying for many years to get is a default speed limit of 20 miles per hour in Inverclyde, and this gets us there. So I'm happy to support the original proposals. Thank you.
I am happy to support Councillor Brooks, Graham's motion that's in front of us here. For me, this is another policy where we risk serious reputational damage to the council. Public backlash, as Graham alluded to, is already there, even just being mentioned in the Graham Telegraph, and the optics of it don't reflect well on anybody in this council. I believe that given the problems on the roads we've had recently, this will just heighten the tensions for motorists and their experience travelling around in Inverclyde. We see that this policy has been put in Wales, and it's, in my view, largely unworkable, unenforceable, and it's being rolled back in many cases. 85,000 people in the first year in Wales was caught breaking the speed limit. 440,000 people cite the petition to rescind it. The public do not support this policy. It's clear as day, and we should stop imposing these arbitrary rules on people when they don't want it.
Thanks, Kirsty. Stu?
Thanks, Convener. I thank Councillor Brooks for bringing this motion to this council. It's absolute common sense. And what he writes his motion, he challenges the necessity and effect of implementing 20 mile/hour speed limits. Princess Street and Kevin Street, two classic examples, reduced to 20 miles an hour. Whole of Port Glasgow town centre has not made one iota of a difference. People drive at the speed they've always driven at, and it doesn't make any difference. This whole thing from report from Transport Scotland is biased, and it's tended towards the change. I'll give you an example. Lower speeds can improve accessibility, reduce the disconnection caused by roads that come up and barriers come on. And this bit here, research shows that any increase in travel time is negligible. If you start one end at Inverclyde at Quarriers Village and drive to Wemsby, and assuming if there's no roadblocks, you're going to get there a lot quicker than 30 miles an hour than you are 20 miles an hour. That's just common sense. It's just the whole thing of this 20 mile an hour is nonsense. When I learned to drive, that's 50 years ago nearly, you are taught that speeds can differ at different times of the day, depending on the road conditions. It can depend on the weather and visibility. And therefore, it's up to the drivers to have the common sense to drive properly. Graham also puts in his motion about a misallocation of taxpayers' money, and I couldn't agree more with that. And as Kirsty says, the whole thing is unenforceable, and it's not even costed, and it's going to be a cost to Inverclyde Council, and the public is not with us. And I would wholeheartedly support Graham's motion.
Thanks, Stu. Tim?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, Drew, Graham and Kirsty put good arguments up. However, I would say it has been acceptable with this council that we agree to 20 miles an hour speed limits, and that we're going to propose these, and we're going to roll them out as soon as equitable, as soon as we possibly could. And up to now, that has been what the policy. And either Eddie or Stuart could tell me if I'm wrong in that, but my belief is that we were wanting 20 miles per hour for the council, and when it became financially possible for us to do that and expedient enough for the officers to be able to promote these. If I'm wrong, I'm not wrong. But we're talking about a culture change. You know, when they brought in seatbelts, I'm not going to bother with a seatbelt. I'll never catch on. Every trip, I'm never going to do that. But eventually, over years and years, it catches on, and now everybody wears seatbelts. Drink driving is probably the same. I could drink with a couple of pints, 2 or 3 pints maybe. I'm okay, I can do with that, right? But over time, especially now in Scotland, we know that drinking at all is a no-no when you're driving. These things take time. So I'm sure I'll go to the same community councils as Graham does. I know that speeding is a big issue, but I know the policing of speeding is an even bigger issue. So it's no use just doing 20 miles per hour. It's like if people ignore 20 miles an hour, but it is a generational thing. It is something that you've got to get used to doing. It's something that you do in the hope that eventually people will know that it's not going to, people are not going to change their driving overnight. People like me might not, the provost might not, even Chris with his electric bike might go faster than 20 miles an hour. I don't know.
I have to watch my speed now.
Right, but it is that thing that it's like, right, okay, this is the way society's moving to. For the sake of safety and an awful lot Chris was saying, I think we should probably go with what was the will of the council. And again, I'll be, if I'm wrong, I'm quite happy to withdraw that. But we should stay with the idea of we wish to see our roads being at 20 miles per hour.
Thanks, Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I think Chris made a lot of very good points, and I couldn't agree more with what he's saying. Latterly, Jim talks about a culture change, and I think it's something we just need to realise that things change and we have to go with it. As far as it comes to safety, I don't think there's any cost on safety. I know budgets are tight, but I just think this is something we have to support. You know, change is never easy, convener, and this is just one area where we have to take the public with us. And I think I agree with Councillor Curley and what Clockley just said. I think between the two of them, they summed it up very, very well. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Colin. Paul?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think there's some good points made in either side of this argument. I mean, Councillor did refer the report you highlight, it was already agreed by this councillor's committee back in January 22 before I was elected member. The principle of 20 mile speed limit, so it's already kind of the settled will of the council. I mean, we need to remember this is a national Scottish Government policy. I'm going to admit, I think a lot of the realistic similes, the rollout of it has been the exact word I want to use, but not really well thought out in terms of like how the government expects how fast local government should be implementing this. And I think that is part of the problems. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of not clarity about it. I think there also have been taking the right approach in terms of they're not rushing into this, they're being cautious, they're taking the time to analyse things. And of course, that it does speak about the future consultations if these are implemented. And after all, as a national government, national Scottish government, policy it, and really so it should be funded by them and not funded by local government.
Okay, Paul, thank you. Ian, do you want to take us through that?
So for you can we have Councillor Brooks' motion. Councillor Brooks' motion, which is the recommendations per the report, save that. You would say that the committee notes and opposes the points of bullet point number 2. Okay. And then we have Councillor Curley's amendment, which is the recommendations per the report.
Okay. I'm happy to put the amendment forward.
So I think if you can, if I ask members just to call out if they're for Councillor Brooks' motion or Councillor Curley's amendment. Councillor Brooks' motion. Councillor Castley.
Amendment.
Councillor Clockerty.
Amendment.
Councillor Crowther.
John.
I think you're muted, Councillor Crowther.
There was one amendment with earlier on, you had a bit of issues with
Okay,
this.
that's fine. That's me on now. Amendment.
Councillor Curley.
Amendment.
Councillor Daisley.
Amendment.
Councillor Jackson.
Amendment.
Councillor McCormick.
Amendment.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Motion.
And Councillor Law.
Motion.
I have 3 votes for the motion, 7 votes for the amendment, so the amendment is carried and the recommendation.
Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Okay, item number 9 is the local housing strategy update. Neil.
Thanks, convener. So I've got to update this report. So this is just the annual in terms of the Western Strategy Action Plan, first iteration was brought to March Environment Regeneration Committee last year. This is an update on the 5-year plan. I've nothing really to highlight on it, although I would say that through the discussion across the action plan, there's been actually a proposal to bring a housing summit forward in April, which is referencing which will cover many strategic issues that are in the action plan.
Okay, thanks Neil. Any questions for Neil on the local housing strategy update? Yes.
Thank you. Not so much on the actual document itself, so obviously the yearly update, but just on the Clyde Housing Summit, exactly what sort of format that would take, and if there's an opportunity for elected members to be involved in that summit.
Thanks for the question through your community. The arrangements have been made for a summit to be held in late April with a range of stakeholders involved in the delivery of the NHS action plan. And indeed, the strategic issues affecting the housing market in Clyde. It's proposed that the invites will be issued reasonably soon, and that will include a mix of elected members and members of Parliament as well.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
You can do that, Councillor Curley, I can confirm you're on the right list.
Thank you. Sure, that's a good idea, sure, yeah. Okay, nobody else? No? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 10 is the Property Asset Management Public Report. Eddie.
Good recommendations for that.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, Eddie, item number 10.
Thanks again. I report a single item dealing with authority to grant license to compassionate and apply to occupy land that runs in grade to install a labyrinth. Land is within the area leased by the council for the estate. Compassionate and apply have already gained their approval, which the estate have confirmed is subject to receiving council's permission. The details within the report, the installation of water plant has been funded and maintained entirely by Compassionate and apply. Regards to approval of the movements and that against the operations.
Okay. Chris?
No, I think it's a good idea, but just obviously, Passionate and Apply, they're obviously saying they're going to be maintaining this. Obviously, timescales, etc. This is quite a commitment for them. So I'm just wondering, it's our due diligence. How much is this going to cost Passionate and Apply? Do we know when to ensure that there's enough funding to do that?
Through your convener, I don't see it costing them very much at all. I mean, it is very low impact. It is basically stones that they're not even excavating to put anything in. Put the stones on. It won't take much to maintain. And again, if it has to be removed at some point, it will be very easy to do so.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's a great what you call it, scheme.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, thanks. Can you follow a bit of a comment? And I think obviously this last that was mentioned in the report, it was one that was meant to be designated for Everton Wednesday. So I moved an amendment to that way back when we discussed a number of months back. So thanks for the support on it. We do have one way to represent both packages. I think any would be concerned that everyone had blacksmith just as much as I would have with this one. Is you ongoing maintenance of it, so how confident we are that Fashion and Apply will be able to maintain it, and that responsibility will at some point fall on the council.
It's effectively the same question that was asked a minute ago. It's low maintenance, very low maintenance, and easy to remove.
Okay, happy to agree recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Item 11 under new business is the Waterfront Leisure Complex.